Hello, this is Millie Weaver, and we are on day 2 of CPAC 2022. I'm with Trevor Loudon, who is an amazing investigative journalist. He investigates Marxism, and really we're seeing this kind of influx of communism in America. It's really alarming. What is your take on the current state of affairs where we're seeing these universities starting to kind of push for more socialist ideologies? We're seeing more and more millennials and young people, when they're being polled, they're seeing communism and socialism in a favorable light. What is happening right now in our country?
Well, this is education from grade school level. The Chinese are involved in the grade school education of this country. Indoctrinating kids goes right through high school, into college, PhD programs, you name it. So the Marxists always saw America as the main impediment to a world revolution. They knew they couldn't take America from the outside, so for over 100 years now they've been infiltrating the education system, the churches, the media, even the sport, but the politics and the unions as well. So we're at the culmination of that. We are on the verge of a revolution in this country that will take us irrevocably down the socialist road if we don't push it back pretty shortly.
I mean, the crazy thing here is remember back during the McCarthy era, right, where there's McCarthyism and they were trying to point out the communist infiltration of many different government agencies and the American institutions. And at that point in time, they were kind of demonized for doing so and pointing it out. But now here we are in America, we're at a point where, there is a serious problem here, right? Where people they're running as Democrats, but if you look at their policies, they're really communist. Do you see a similarity between the McCarthy time period versus now? We saw that kind of heating up around the time period with the Russians and the Cold War, and now we're seeing things heating up here with Biden in Ukraine. What do you make of all of this?
That's exactly right, Millie. McCarthy has been demonized, but who invented the term McCarthyism? The Communist Party newspaper invented the term McCarthyism. They were holding hearings for years that were set up by the Democratic Party to expose the Nazis, the communists, and the Klan. McCarthy only came towards the end of that program. I've watched those hearings. I've read them. They were fair. They were accurate. The only fault was they didn't go far enough. So because we didn't clean out the communists then, they infiltrated the State Department, they infiltrated the education system, the mainstream politics, the media, and we thought it had all gone away with the collapse of the Berlin Wall. We thought, we might have had a problem, but now it's all gone away. We forgot about the Chinese Communist Party, which has way more money than the Soviets ever had. So we've got the old cultural Marxists, we've got the remnants of the Communist Party USA, we've got Democratic Socialists of America. They are infiltrating the churches, the universities, the media. We are absolutely saturated at this point with communists. And you've got to realize, in our Congress and our Senate, there are no background checks. There's no checks at all. So every major committee in the US Congress now, from Homeland Security to armed services, to intelligence, to education, is run by a Marxist.
Exactly.
Everyone.
And for those of you guys who are well, where are all these red flags flying around? Sure, you see it at an Antifa protest, but you don't necessarily see it as abruptly in the school systems. They hide it, they mask it. When you say they mask it, and
Absolutely.
They call it critical race theory, but when you actually get into it, you realize, okay, no, this is communist ideology, or they call it environmental education. But when you look into the actual literature, it's literally Marxism under the guise of environmentalism.
Well, so they know that American parents are not going to accept their kids coming home waving communist flags or hammer and sickle T-shirts or whatever. But you can introduce Marxist ideas through the teachers' unions, through the teachers' colleges, so the kids are learning Marxism and not even knowing what it is. And so you've got this is the Bernie Sanders generation. This is the influence of Gramsci, the Italian communist, who said, we can't have a revolution in America on the streets. what we've got to do is get into the churches, we've got to get into the schools, we've got to change people's consciousness so they become unconscious socialists. And now we're seeing it where young kids grow up hating America. They think America got rich by exploiting the third world and enslaving people and ripping people off. They hate their own country, and they believe the only way to save things is to bring America down and introduce socialism. And this is a communist revolution. But because there's no tanks running through the streets, there's no big red flags being raised, they don't recognize it. But That's what it is.
Yes, it's a soft takeover.
Yeah, it's a covert takeover. Well, communists, the best trick the devil ever pulled was to convince people he doesn't exist. Well, the best trick the communists ever pulled is to convince people they don't exist or they're no longer a threat, while they're infiltrating virtually every element of our society. The FBI hasn't investigated these people for nearly 30 years now. You imagine an analogy. Say the Soviet Union was the center of communism, so they destroyed the Soviet Union. But they still left China, they still left Vietnam, they still left Cuba. Well, if you have cancer and you cut out 90% of the tumor, but then you stop all treatment for the next 10 years, and what's your body going to look like after 10 years?
Right.
We stopped fighting communism in America 30 years ago, and now it's running the country.
Right. I mean, there's definitely a problem. I mean,
Absolutely.
The real thing is, though, what's the solution? Like, is it just calling it out, or are there other things that people need to do?
Well, we actually have to start by that and educating people. That's why we did our movie Enemies Within the Church, to show people how it's in the churches, and Enemies Within to show how it's in the government. But we actually have to get in a position where we can start actually using investigative powers and using the laws on the books to put these people on trial for treason, because they're breaking laws here. They're working for foreign powers against us. They're committing treason. They're committing subversion. So we actually have to start putting people on trial and prosecuting them and putting them in jail for what they do, to put it on the record. And we have to also start defunding their organizations, because most of the revolution is funded by the American taxpayer and charitable foundations. We have to cut that money flow off.
I totally agree. And one of the things that's just really concerning for me is, you're right, it is subversion, it is treason.
Unions are all communist control, and they get to influence the curriculum and basically tell the school boards what they must teach and what they are not allowed to teach. So I've read my boys' school textbook. The history books are extremely left-wing. Like, you'll have a thing about a paragraph, they'll do 5 pages on Islam and how wonderful Islam is. Then they'll talk about American Christianity. It'll be 1 paragraph, white Christians came from Europe and wiped out the Indians. That's the coverage of Christianity. So what are young kids going to be thinking about their country after they've read these books for several years? They're not going to be proud of their country. They're going to be ashamed and embarrassed about their country. And the only way they can atone for that is joining Black Lives Matter, which is a communist Chinese operation, by the way. And so, yes, this is in virtually every single subject. We've seen critical race theory because it's very obvious, it's in our face, and I credit the people who are fighting it, but it goes way beyond critical race theory. This is in every subject in school. It has got Marxist tinges through it.
Right. I mean, it's alarming at the rate we're seeing the children just being turned out into little mini communists, Marxists. They're joining up with these BLM groups, these Antifa groups, thinking that they're doing something good.
They think they're doing something good. That's the key. They don't wake up thinking, I'm going to destroy America tomorrow. They are working to destroy America, and they think they're saving it.
Right, so they appeal to like a false morality.
Yes, exactly.
Now, I know you mentioned that there was communism in the churches. Give me an example of that, because I've heard a lot about communism in education, infiltrating government agencies and other corporations, but I haven't really heard too much about the churches.
Yeah, well, see, the first communist front in America was set up before the Bolshevik Revolution. It was the Methodist Federation for Social Action. It was set up by a Communist Party member to infiltrate the Methodist Church, because the communists knew that America was the main impediment to the revolution, and they knew that churches were the backbone of America, right? So they immediately got into the churches, and they did that to the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, and they turned most of the mainstream churches, Episcopalian, whatever, to the left. Well, in the modern era, they had a couple of setbacks. The evangelicals, who they didn't control, they went out and voted for Ronald Reagan. Then they came back and voted for Donald Trump, and that set the left-wing agenda back a lot, did a lot of damage to them. So they started working about 15 years ago through the Gospel Coalition and other groups, Jim Wallace of Sojourners, to bring Marxist ideas into the evangelical churches and the Baptists. They did it to what they call, the critical race theory is big in the churches. The concept of white privilege, which was invented by the Communist Party members Ted Allen and Noel Ignatieff. Social justice. All of these things have been brought into the churches. They're very heavy in the seminaries and the Bible colleges. They've basically done to the Bible colleges what they already did to the universities. Okay? So now all the young pastors who once would have come out and loved America and the Constitution and voted for Ronald Reagan and supported Israel are now coming out loving Bernie Sanders, loving socialism, supporting Palestine. And so these young pastors are indoctrinating the youth of the church, and what used to be conservative American Christianity is rapidly going to the left, which is going to have a huge impact on both the culture and the politics. And we name names in our documentary, Enemies Within the Church. We name prominent Christians who write very popular books, and we point out their Marxist backgrounds, and we look at the Marxist message and what they're teaching and how that's influencing the Bible colleges, who are turning into politically correct Stalinist schools these days.
Well, it sounds like you've amassed an incredible trove of information, and
There's a lot.
I cannot wait to unpack it all. Where can people find your book?
Well, my books are through, on Amazon, but the best way to go is to see the movie Enemies Within the Church. Just go to enemieswithinthechurch.com. enemieswithinthechurch.com. We have you can stream it on your computer or your phone, or you can buy hard copies. It's selling incredibly well.
Wow.
It's causing massive controversy in the church right now, and we're getting letters from pastors and lay people all over the country saying, "Hallelujah, thank you, thank you, thank you. Finally somebody saying something about this."
Right, definitely. It needs to be exposed.
Absolutely. We lose the church, we lose the country. We've got to save both.
And just like you're saying, the churches are the stronghold.
Yep.
So without them, we lose it all. We lose conservatism. People kind of lose their moral compass.
Yep.
And they start getting bamboozled and conned into communism without knowing, you know?
They do. It's exactly what's happening. And I credit you for being one of the few investigative journalists to investigate these people, because we have a communist infrastructure in this country that's doing massive damage, and most journalists are unfortunately ignoring it.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Trevor. Thank you for coming on today. It's an honor. And I guess you guys can check out Trevor's new movie. I'm definitely going to watch it.
Oh, you'll love it. You'll absolutely.
Certifiably fair and free, right?
Yeah.
Then we wouldn't.
Are we allowed to say? I don't know where this broadcasts from. I don't know. Is this a YouTube thing?
No, this is the thing. Okay, so. Okay. I notice you're kind of like nervous to say. I
don't want to say certain things
because you don't want to get me banned or censored on social media, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
However, here's the thing: this is exactly what is wrong right now in America. You shouldn't have to be governing your speech.
It's a totalitarian situation we've got with the media.
Yeah, you should be able to freely say your opinion, your voice, without fearing, oh my gosh, is Millie going to get banned? Are we going to get banned? And that is the theme. The theme this year for CPAC is we will not be canceled, right?
Is that the theme?
Yeah. Is
that the official theme?
It's on their website.
I haven't heard that. That's amazing.
We will
not
be canceled. Yeah. And so this is what we all want to say. It's like, we're not going to be canceled. You can try to cancel us and shut us down on like your social media platforms, YouTube, Twitter, whatever. But look at the amazing like renaissance of technology and social media like things popping up. There's Getter here, there's Clout Hub, there's just so many things.
I think Getter might be mad at me because it was either Getter or Gab. I think it was Gab, but I had suggested that what if it's like an FBI thing to like monitor conservatives, like attract conservatives and monitor them, and I got this really angry like Twitter message in my DMs,
right?
So I didn't even look at it. I saw the first time. I was like, I'll look at it eventually.
Right. I guess that's a valid
it was
concern.
It was just a proposition.
No.
I didn't know for sure.
Yeah. Because here's the thing. Our data makes us all so vulnerable in this day and age. Like, okay, look what's happened with the Give, Send, Go.
Yeah.
How Give, Send, Go got hacked. You had all these conservatives.
Well, first, GoFundMe. GoFundMe is like censoring people. They won't let you give to the places that you want. You're only allowed to give money to leftist organizations. That's insane. And then Give, Send, Go gets attacked.
Yeah,
I mean, it's unbelievable.
So GoFundMe says to the Freedom Convoy, we're not going to give you the money.
Yeah.
We're going to give it to charities of our choosing.
Which is insane.
Yeah, and then they get backlash for that, so they kind of walk it back a little bit, and then they say, oh, okay, you know what, fine. You guys can pick which charities it goes to. Well, if I were them, I'd be like, well, we pick us, right? Give it to us. That's what it was raised for.
How about you give it to the people that I had designated it to go to? How about that?
Yeah, or give it back to the donors. They wanted that money to go to that cause. If it's not going to go to that cause, it needs to be immediately refunded. Right, so there was a whole controversy there. And then Give, Send, Go, which is like a conservative crowdfunding, they said, we'll step up to the plate, we'll do it. They raised a bunch of money, they were giving it, they gave it over to the Freedom Convoy people, and then they get hacked, which is the creepiest thing, because it's like, who hacks it for the government?
There is a guy, did you not see the video where the guy's admitting to it?
I understand.
He's like a lunatic.
But I don't believe it.
He might be, might not be, yeah.
Like, why would you, if you did that, that's a criminal thing, okay?
Yeah.
Why would you come out and admit it? Really? Come on. I don't know if he's just...
Well, some people are crazy.
Like,
I don't dismiss the possibility that it was that guy.
I mean, it could have been that guy, but we don't really have much evidence that it was him, or we just have him coming out and claiming it.
Let's be honest. Leftism, no matter who it is, leftism is a psychological disorder.
Yeah, most of them you see are like deranged, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I've interviewed plenty of them. You see it in their eyes. They get very hysterical. But the bottom line is this. I mean, we're seeing people being censored, banned, kicked off of social media apps, and you're concerned about, us all going into these other social medias where what's happening to the data? Is it all being tracked? Like, are they just giving that data off to some other third party that then is using it for some nefarious purpose, be it election AI models?
Yeah, you got to use a VPN. And then I worry sometimes the VPN might be run by some nefarious group.
Right, so that's the concern.
And if you want to use a VPN, no, sorry.
I don't really know.
Going into my ads.
But yeah, like, this is why we've seen some people addressing security and privacy, which QUX does address security and privacy. They essentially have it so that it's end-to-end encrypted, 256-bit encrypted. It is like extremely private secure, and because it's in its own private secure network, it's very hard to try to get into. We've had, it's had massive attacks, DDoS attacks, hack attacks, constantly.
So I never heard of QUX until you asked me to do this interview, and I met these people right here.
Yeah, I mean, it's new. QUX
is very new.
It's starting up. As you can see the pictures over here. I mean, it's literally like social media television. Yeah. But it's different because how Apple has its own operating system, it's its own electronics company. Yeah. So is QUX. Okay. It's its own electronics company. So you could put the QUX operating system in a TV box or in like an iPad type thing or a phone or a computer. So it's a operating system essentially.
It's its own platform, really.
It's its own electronic company. Yeah. And so that's what's key is because if you're using their electronics, they're in control of that. They're in control of it. Like, you don't know.
So this is a secure answer to the lack of security that we have.
Exactly, and with the QUX App Store, like on your cell phones, many people have talked about how in the Apple App Store and these other app stores, the apps themselves like spy and collect all this data. that has nothing to do with even their app, and
Right.
then they make the money by collecting the data, and then they sell it
Selling
to
it,
third
yeah,
parties. The QUX app store is private and secure, and it doesn't allow that spying and overreach into people's privacy, protects people's privacy.
Well, that's fantastic. I hope it becomes a huge success. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you. I mean, it's been received very well here at CPAC, and I hope to see more people getting on there, creating portals where you can put content up on the television. But the bottom line here is, if we don't do something as a movement, what are we going to do when our information is being literally banned off of all of these platforms?
Yeah, because, in order to have any kind of functioning democracy, you need information to be able to be freely communicated. And that includes wrong information. There's this, war on the left against, misinformation or disinformation, which I had a discussion the other day about what the difference is. The difference is intention, right? So misinformation would be like you say something and it's a mistake. You didn't say the right thing. And I occasionally spread misinformation because I'm just wrong sometimes. We all do. CNN does. I think CNN mostly spreads disinformation, though, if I'm honest.
Right. I think the difference, though, with misinformation is if you know something is knowingly wrong and you're spreading it.
That's disinformation.
Or disinformation. So misinformation is just accidentally. But then, see, honorable journalists, like I'm sure you do, they make retractions and then it's fine.
Yeah.
Problem is that, CNN gets held to one standard where they're allowed to make retractions, but if a conservative journalist happens to get it wrong,
then we just get deplatformed.
Yeah, we get deplatformed.
Well, the thing is, the problem is that it's not even misinformation that they're claiming that we're spreading, or disinformation. I mean, I know they're claiming that we're spreading that, but it's not disinformation. It's not misinformation. Like if I say that these cloth masks don't do anything, I'll get kicked off YouTube. But the CDC just announced that actually, whoops, cloth masks don't do anything.
Right.
Did you see that report? They just came out, it was like maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Oh, my friend Linda's here. And she's colored her hair. They just come out with this report that says, in fact, the cloth masks don't really work. But nobody's reporting it because they don't want to say, oh, actually, we were wrong for the last 2 years and the conservatives were right. So it doesn't get reported anywhere. And I actually did a whole report on it. I recorded the whole thing. I edited it together, and I was like, I still can't post this on YouTube, even though it's the CDC saying it. Because I was like, well, let me check the YouTube guidelines real quick. And it says we only allow information that's been expressed by the WHO. So I think what they do is they change their standard to whichever organization that they prefer and say, if you're reiterating information from any other organization, even if it's the CDC, we can still deplatform you.
So I guess the question is, how many conservatives got banned for being right? And now that the left-wing organizations are realizing they were wrong and not wanting to make retractions, are those conservatives that might have gotten banned for expressing this about the masks now being reinstated? Are their accounts being reinstated? No, it's not. See, so this is what's wrong with the situation and the way these platforms operate.
Right.
Like with my YouTube channel, I got my YouTube channel entirely demonetized in it was end of March or beginning of April of 2020. Why? Because I did a video where I talked about that vaccine mandates were coming and that vaccine passports were coming.
Right.
I talked about that. At the time period...
What are you talking about? That would never happen.
Right, never. No. And the mainstream media at that time...
Biden is always right, and so is Fauci.
Right.
We got to make sure we follow the rules, Millie.
Right. You have to stay in line with the narrative.
Yeah.
So then, of course, I get demonetized for that and penalized, and it comes out now, everyone's it's known.
Yeah.
There's vaccine mandates and vaccine passports.
Yeah. Everything they say, look, I mean, they want to control the narrative. Doesn't matter if it's true. Now, what I was saying before about you need to be able to say things that are wrong. The reason that that's true is because we don't always know what's right and what's wrong. CNN is probably wrong 80% of the time.
Right.
But because that's the narrative that they've decided is correct, they can say basically anything they want, and we're not allowed. We can only say what they tell us that we can say, which is just completely. I mean, I had a video removed because I said in the video I think that the 2020 election was stolen. Okay, so I had a video removed and I was banned from YouTube for a week. I imagine that eventually we're going to find out that that's true. But to me, it's I can't even state an opinion about something like they said that I was spreading misinformation or disinformation, but like they don't actually know. They don't know if the election was stolen or not. They believe that it was fair, or they say they believe that it was fair. But there is a lot of evidence that it was. And so recently I did a video about Dinesh D'Souza's coming out with a new film. I think it's called 2,000 Mules. Have you heard about this? Basically, he's got video footage of people going to various ballot boxes and stuffing the ballot boxes, presumably with fake ballots.
That movie, I saw the trailer for it, guys. It looks amazing.
It looks amazing. So I did a whole video, and I'm going to post it soon.
Yeah.
But the way I express anything about the 2020 election is I say, now, our election was perfectly fair and perfect, but on the planet of Turth, far, far away, a long, long time ago, there was another event called the selection of the executive, and there was a great leader called what do I call him, Donaldus J. Trumpius, and he was unfortunately cheated out of a win by his opponent Bo Jiden. And so I create this total fictional universe in order to explain some of the things that I'm seeing going on in our real world, just so that I don't get, if you can turn it into a fiction, if you can turn it into parody, or satire, then you're allowed to do it. So I have to turn the whole thing into satire.
Just sing it all as like a Broadway.
It's a musical. If I had a good voice,
that'd be
that's
West
what I would
Side
do.
Story, but it's like political story.
Yeah. You can come on my show anytime and do the musical version of the 2020 election.
I would be like Lucille Ball, like
perfect. I love it.
It'd be horrible. But yeah, it's scary.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy that we have to fictionalize our lives in order to tell the truth?
Well, hopefully not much longer.
Yeah.
There are solutions. QX is a solution. There's other social media platforms, even here at CPAC.
Yeah.
We're coming back. I know the liberals, they'd always say, you don't like being deplatformed, you don't like it, well then, learn to code. Well, there's plenty of conservatives that know how to code, and they're coding up new platforms, new technologies. Point. Silicon Valley, the liberal socialists are not going to forever have the stronghold on technology.
Yeah.
And if anything, them doing this, in a way, it's kind of a good thing, because they had like this complete monopoly on technology, social media, all of that. And this kind of actually opens the door for more startups, more businesses to come out of nowhere, and people are going to want those services, because you're going to be able to choose, like, okay, do I want to be on a platform that's like some crazy freaking speech Nazis, or do I want to be on a platform that lets me say whatever I want to say?
You make a really good point. I mean, YouTube's suffocating my channel, which they are definitely suffocating my channel. They reduce the distribution. So although they don't always censor my videos, what they'll do is they'll say, okay, only people who are subscribed to his channel are going to be able to even see the thumbnails pop up on their YouTube channels. So like my videos are never seen by anybody really who doesn't already subscribe to my channel, which is really frustrating.
Right.
Mr. Reagan on YouTube.
Right. And, there you go. Follow him on YouTube.
But this has actually driven me to try to do some other things. Like I have a new YouTube channel called Mr. Pagan. It's my evil twin.
Okay.
He talks like this.
Oh
he thinks that cheating is so much fun. I don't know why you guys hate cheating. It's no fun. The elections aren't fun without cheating. We need it.
Right.
So that's my like alter ego, Mr. Pagan. So I do that as a kind of comedy channel to try to get around the, because satire and that sort of thing. And then a buddy of mine, I was talking to him about an old script I wrote, and he's like, let's do a short film. I'm like, all right, I know some Hollywood people. So we're going to do this short film, going to try to make a movie, do some stuff like that, because there isn't enough representation of our, conservative messages, I think, in films, in television, and not even conservative messages, just good storytelling without a leftist message. You know what I mean? Right.
Like, there's really a lot of good comedy within the conservative movement in general. It just gets banned. Like, you don't see it very often. A lot of those like really cringy videos with like the leftist protesters was like comedy gold. Like I would watch that any day over like an SNL skit or something. Like hilarious. You can't beat
Well,
that.
I'll tell you what, there's a kind of a comedy vacuum right now in America, because the left has basically said you can't make fun of anything now. If you make fun of, this list of 1,000 things, you will be canceled. So, and most comedians are somewhat left-wing, or at least care about what they say. And so a lot of people are just kind of not, like none of the late night shows really do comedy anymore. I mean, Gutfeld is beating all of the late night comedy shows, and there just seems to be this comedy vacuum. So like JP Sears, there's a lot of great conservative comedians who are coming up, and people don't have any other comedy to turn to, so they're turning to that. My channel's not doing so well, but I'm not that funny, to be honest. I try.
You seem pretty funny.
Check out Mr. Pagan, and then you tell me.
There you go. You be the judge of it.
You be the judge.
You go check it out. Well, I noticed it seems like you do a lot of stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
Would you say you're pretty, your content is pretty dominant with YouTube?
I've tried to go to other platforms, especially, I don't know if the Rumble people are here, but I would like to talk to them, because I put my videos on both YouTube and Rumble, and I'll get 70,000 views on something on YouTube, let's say. And I checked on one video that got a good number of views, and it had, I think, 34 views on Rumble.
Right.
And I'm like, I can't focus on this. I would love to focus on Rumble more than YouTube, but there's no money in it. There's no way I can support myself this is my job. My job is YouTube. So
right. So you haven't been demonetized yet, then, I'm assuming.
No. But I sell ads.
You seem to be very good, though. Like I noticed you're reading their terms, you're reading their guidelines, you're trying to maneuver with inside of it.
Well, I normally
just
don't.
Screwed up by just blah. I just say whatever I want.
No, that's the way to go. I don't like being curtailed. I do not check myself. I don't censor myself. Right. Really at all, and to my own detriment. I've had problems as well. But the problem was that I had already had one strike for saying I thought the 2020 election was... And then if I got another strike, a guideline strike, then I would have been banned for a month. So I wouldn't have been able to make any money that month, at least not through YouTube. So I was very sensitive to that.
Here's the thing. This is what I will say. From a fellow creator who's been demonetized, who's been censored...
Yeah.
QUX is the solution, okay? And it's been built around our experience, essentially, because you and I are very similar in that we're creators, we're conservatives, we're heavily on YouTube.
And we look almost exactly alike.
We're twins. I'm just kidding. and essentially, this helps creators to be able to monetize, make money on QUX.
It's fantastic.
You can build your own portal. In your portal, you can actually merchandise and you can sell things. So if you sold, I don't know if you sell anything, shirts, hats, or books.
I have a Teespring like everybody else.
Okay, so there you go. If you sell shirts or any merchandise, you could put it on your QUX portal to where people literally watching from their television can click with their remote and buy your stuff on it. They can watch your videos on it. You can directly stream onto it or upload onto the QUX servers, so you don't have to worry about being banned. Yeah. But also, you don't have to abandon completely all that YouTube stuff, the YouTube content. Because me, I know I've got hundreds of videos on YouTube, and I don't want to just walk away. I put so much into that.
Yeah.
So what do? On my portal, I'll show you it in a minute here. I literally can connect in my entire YouTube playlist, and it pulls it into my portal.
Well, I'm not going to lie and say I completely understand QUX, which probably many people out there are I don't fully understand QUX.
Right.
But from what I've heard so far, I love it, and I want to get one.
Right.
And I also want to try to maybe put some of my content on it as well. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm going to have to talk to these guys.
You won't have to govern yourself on there. You can say whatever the heck you want to say.
Exactly. And that's
out.
what we need. We need people to be free to be able to say what they genuinely believe is true. Because everything on my channel is authentic. It's nothing. It's kind of weird. The left tends to try to pretend that conservatives like us are trying to lie to people or something like that, or trying to. I don't understand what our benefit would be, but they seem. But the problem is that's what they're doing. They will lie to you for a variety of reasons. I think primarily it comes from politicians who want to get votes, right? So they'll say, "Oh, Republicans are all racist." That way you'll vote for them because you're like, "Well, I don't like racists." I mean, obviously it's not true. If you look, I'm looking at, okay, she's Asian, he's Arab, he's black. Like half the people here are not,
Right, they're definitely trying to. They're definitely trying to make sure that they control certain voting blocks, demographics, and by vilifying their enemy as being racist or bigots or whatever terminology they come up with. It's a way to get people to kind of
xenophobic. That one was popular for a good minute.
Right. But I also think, there's a little bit of like weird communist stuff behind that if you actually look into these organizations, and it's a tactic that's been used repetitively.
Yeah.
Like in Algeria with the Algerian Communist Revolution there, they were calling the people there, the communists there were calling the Algerian people racist, bigots.
I think in America since like the 20s, the Soviets were trying to create a racial division in America by trying to paint all white people as racist. That was a genuine. It was called Comintern, which is like a communist international, and this was their effort. This was one of their tactics.
Right. The communists were fully trying to infiltrate and take over and steer the Black Panther parties and a lot of the black the Black Power movements in that time period, and kind of turn them all out into communist groups, right? So yeah, definitely there's a problem with communism in this country, and I think that is rooted in why we're seeing a lot of these progressives, the big tech Silicon Valley people wanting to censor certain speeches, because there's something a little bit sinister kind of going on behind the scenes. Yeah.
Millie, I love talking to people who know what they're talking about. It's so funny, when you talk to most people in regular life, especially conservatives, I mean, they know what they're talking about, but they won't necessarily know certain things like about the connection between the communist movement and there's Peter Schweitzer. Peter Schweitzer's the man.
Okay. There's all kinds of people here at CPAC today. It's amazing.
It's fantastic. If you've never been to CPAC and you've thought about it, I would highly recommend going. I mean, it's a little bit different for us maybe because we know a lot of the celebrities or like a lot of the people behind the scenes and stuff. So, I mean, it's so fun for me. Like, I love seeing Sebastian Gorka. I don't see him very often because he's in DC and I'm in LA, but he's a friend of mine, but I never really see him. So
you're just like pointing him out as they're walking by.
We might go smoke cigars tonight, which would be fantastic. But then there's the parties in the evening and stuff. I mean, CPAC's great.
It is. Well, CPAC. Christopher, it's been great. Why don't you let people know where they can find you until you've been banned, of course, but for the time being.
Until I get banned,
right.
Go check me out on YouTube. I know people don't like YouTube because it's evil and leftist, but it does actually allow us to communicate to the masses to some degree. So I'm on YouTube as Mr. Reagan, and then if you want something a little bit funnier, check out Mr. Pagan. Those videos, I think, are pretty funny. I think they're pretty good.
Right, and hopefully in the near future, you'll build a portal and you'll be on QUX as well.
Yeah, soon. I'm going to look into that now, actually.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris.
All right.
It's been a pleasure.
It's always lovely talking to you.
Enjoy your time here at CPAC. All right. Definitely. All right, guys. So we'll be right back with another guest. Hang tight. Another small intermission here. I'll be right back.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. That was a lot of fun.
All right.
Hello.
Hello. All right. So we're with Hirak,
Yes.
and you are running for office, correct? So why
Yes.
don't you tell people about yourself, where you're running, what they can do to support you?
Okay, my name is Hirak Christian Kim, and it's Korean name, so it's not easy to spell, but it's Heerak, middle name Christian, last name Kim, and you can visit my website at www.hirak4congress.com. And I'm on Twitter as well, Hirak4Congress. And you can help me by donating to my campaign, following me on Twitter, and get me into Virginia's 8th District, which has been solidly Democrat for last over like 10 years. And my opponent, who is Don Beyer, gets like 70% of the vote every time. So you contribute to my campaign, and let's turn that around for 70% for me, and then Don Beyer gets 30%, and we start making Virginia, northern area, completely Republican.
Yes, that is the goal. So what would you say some of your big, like, strong points are for your campaign? Like, what policies are you running on?
Okay, I can identify the policies that I'm running on under several categories: education, healthcare, and strong military defense. So under education, I'm opposed to critical race theory.
Great.
And LGBTQ indoctrination at age 10. Elementary school kids. I'm an elementary school teacher. I'm licensed in Virginia, DC, Alabama, public schools, along with other states. And having taught elementary students in Anacostia neighborhood, Washington, D.C., which is the poorest black neighborhood in D.C., and also in Arlington, Wakefield High School, I understand that these kids struggle with identity issues.
Right.
Whites, blacks, Hispanics, Asians. And critical race theory polarizes these children who can get along into racially opposed groups. So the fundamental concept of critical race theory is that white people are bad, white people are oppressors. And so in my 100% black student body, elementary school, Savoy Elementary School, that kind of education can, and obviously I didn't teach this, but let's say some other teacher teaches this, he can give these elementary students a wrong perception of white people. The neighborhood is completely black. They can grow up thinking all white people are oppressors and evil, and they can have hatred for whites from early on, and that can be built into the elementary system. I've taught in Arlington County Public Schools, which is more white, and that's the district I'm running in. And these white children are taught by critical race theory teachers who are often white themselves, but they're liberal, that whites are oppressors. And these children, because these teachers are their authority figures, and they have them from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day, Monday through Friday, they think that that is like gospel truth.
Right.
So they grow up with self-identity issues, and especially during puberty, children struggle with identity. And to throw this in, like you need to hate yourself because you're white, you come from line of oppressors, I'm sure it gives children suicide ideation. I'm sure children have attempted suicide purely because of critical race theory indoctrination in public schools.
Definitely.
So I want mental health for our children. So I want to emphasize we need to get rid of critical race theory indoctrination, LGBTQ indoctrination, so that our children will grow up to be normal people, not people with these insecurities and self-hatred.
Right, like we don't want division in our country.
No.
Parents do not want their children
Sure.
to be being taught about these divisive race theories that,
Right.
that demonize any particular race, confuse a bunch of students,
Sure.
confuse the hell out of a lot of biracial children in America.
Right.
It's not good. It doesn't belong in our schools. It's divisive. It's really teaching our children racism when they shouldn't be
Right.
even focused on that. They should be focused on other things,
Sure.
learning about math,
Sure.
reading, writing, all of that other stuff. So that's amazing that you're running on that. What are some of your other policies you're running on?
So healthcare is a major issue. I'm a registered nurse in state of Virginia, Washington, D.C., and my Virginia license is multi-state. So I can practice as a registered nurse in like around 30 states. And before coming to CPAC, I actually work graveyard shift from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. on Sunday night, Monday night, and Tuesday night. And then I spoke at Arlington County Republican Committee meeting, and then I came to CPAC. One of the greatest problems of Obamacare is because it uses private companies as middlemen to deliver Obamacare. Obamacare is managed by the government, but it is administered through private insurance. And so these private insurance, they're jacking up premiums, co-pays, deductibles. So annually, these are going up under Obamacare. And because insurance industry is generalized, It's impacting private insurance, company-owned insurance. So what's happening now is there are middle-class Americans, working-class Americans like teachers who make $40,000. They have insurance, but their copay is like $7,500 a year.
Oh, wow.
So let's say they develop a problem, like they have an inflamed gallbladder, and they have to get a surgery, but their deductible is $7,500. That means they have to pay up to $7,500 before
crazy.
the insurance kicks in. So
Right.
the surgery may be, $30,000, $40,000, but they still have to pay $7,500. A teacher on a $40,000 a year salary, that's like an average throughout America, with a bachelor's and master's degree in teaching. After taxes, their take-home pay is something like $29,000 a year, and they're just trying to live. Pay rent, buy food. If they have children, that goes into that. So $7,500 is something that they don't have saved up.
Right. It's very expensive. It's taxing on the American people to be spending that high of deductibles, to be spending already when you're spending so much on your monthly
Sure.
payment for your health insurance, and then to have that deductible, that's just it's too much. It's outrageous.
Sure.
Whatever happened to I know when I was younger, my parents had health insurance,
Right.
and as a kid, it was like really cheap. So
Right.
what went wrong? Like, what did they change to make it that way? And what do you plan to do to kind of help mitigate these issues?
Yes, so I think the first thing we need to do is abolish Obamacare. Insurance premiums has been rising, but Obamacare jacked it up much higher. So we need to first abolish Obamacare. And I think when we had private insurance and they were competing against each other in the free market, not a controlled market like Obamacare is,
Right.
that kept costs down because people were shopping for insurance.
Definitely.
But that has kind of gone out the window since Obamacare. And before insurance started paying health care about 20, 30 years ago, everybody just paid out of pocket. So a healthy person like yourself or myself who go to hospital maybe once a year just for physical checkup, that's like $150 per visit.
Right.
And so annual cost of healthcare for seeing a doctor can be $150 per year, but under Obamacare, you have to have insurance, which means premiums can be around $3,000 a year, which come out to around $300 a month.
Wow.
And you're only seeing a doctor once a year for $150. And under Obamacare, if you don't have insurance, you have to pay penalty, which is like $150 a month. That adds up to like around $2,000 a year. So it's making you pay for insurance that you don't need and punishing you for being healthy. So we need to get rid of Obamacare, and there are several options. One, we could revert back to what we had before, which is private insurance is competing against each other in free market. Second option is to have government not include private insurance companies in the administration of healthcare, kind of like the England model, but that's going to take a while to implement.
Sure.
So that's one option. Another option is kind of reducing insurance power so that private individuals can just pay as they go. Like if they go to a doctor's office once a year, just pay $150 for a visit.
So it sounds like you have a pretty thorough plan. You figured a lot of stuff out, and I know most people probably watching are not fans of Obamacare, so that's really good that you want to get rid of Obamacare.
Yes, definitely.
Now, one last issue I think is probably one of the more important issues that I'm sure a lot of the viewers want to know about is your stance on the Second Amendment.
Yes.
Do you fully support the Second Amendment?
Yes. So I fully support the Second Amendment, and the extent to which I support the Second Amendment is that not only should we have open carry, but I think we should allow people to have guns without all the regulatory checking systems that are kind of blocking people out of owning guns. For example, former criminals cannot own guns. And I think that goes against the spirit of the Second Amendment. Just because somebody committed burglary as a 18-year-old or 19-year-old doesn't mean that they have given up their right to own gun under the Second Amendment. But under the current federal government background check system, someone who has committed a felony at age 18 cannot own a gun at age 30, and that is not what Second Amendment was meant to be. Because
Right.
that 30-year-old person who served his time for his felony and now is a part of society as good citizen, and he may be a great Christian, he may even be a clergyman, he has the right to own a gun and defend himself and his family, and the current system of background checks impedes his rights under the Second Amendment. So I support doing away with restrictive federal background checks that excludes individuals who have criminal record, who serve their time, who should be allowed to have guns. And criminals, if they want to get a gun, they can anyway.
Right, right.
So,
That's the thing.
So background check that's federal government mandated, I think it's useless. And I think some states are doing the right thing and allowing people to own a gun without a background check. And I think that's the right way to go. I live in a state, Virginia, which used to be very Democrat, and they've been rolling back gun rights. And that's a serious problem. Every American should be allowed to own an assault rifle. And I believe that children, who can't hold an assault rifle should be taught to use it and learn how to be responsible
Right, more
at
gun
using
education, definitely.
Yes, and so we need to go back to the roots of Second Rights Amendment, where we have informed citizenry and families, who may live in rural areas by themselves in 10-acre land, who may have, drug gangs or other ill-intentioned individuals coming onto their property. We need to have the children in that property knowing how to use assault rifles in case their parents are hurt.
Right, definitely. It's good to promote gun education and gun safety. The problem is when the children in the home don't know gun safety, they haven't been trained anything, and then if they get their hands on a gun and unknowingly discharge it, hurt themselves or hurt someone else, that's when you have these traumatic, horrible stories with kids. It's because of lack of gun safety education.
Yes.
So yeah, that definitely, maybe there should be more programs that kind of help facilitate that. But Hirak, you seem to have some pretty amazing policies that you're running on. You seem like a patriotic American.
I am.
Where can people find out more about your campaign so they can help support you?
Yes, so you could go to my Twitter at Hirak 4 Congress. So that my first name is spelled HEERAK 4 Congress, and that's my Twitter handle. And my website is Hirak4Congress.com. So you could come and donate money to my campaign. And so we can beat this guy who's been beating Republicans and conservatives with margin of 70% to 30%.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hirak.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys, we will be right back. It's still going live.
All right. Can I take a photo with you?
Yes, absolutely. There you go. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Jerry James. All right.
All right. Well, you got to be sick of doing this already.
Oh no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
All right, so we're back, guys. We're here with Jerry James. Now, Jerry, you're another candidate. You're running as well. Tell people about your where you're running, how they can support you.
Yeah, I'm running for the State Senate, District 7, Florida. It's a really important position. Currently, we have a Rhino Republican in there. I'm a conservative Republican that will not water down in any way our constitutional rights.
That's key. That's important. So What are some of the policies that you're running on and campaigning on?
Well, I think mainly, first and foremost, when I get there to Senate, I will write a campaign, election integrity bill within my first 30 days that will basically mandate that we go back to paper ballots in a one-day voting day, rather than this strung out multiple week voting day, write-in ballots, drop boxes, all this, where we can, create election fraud. And even though we won the state of Florida, we have to protect our election integrity. So that's one of my main issues. Vaccine mandates, obviously, any kind of mandates, mask mandates. The medical establishment has no business in our personal lives whatsoever.
Absolutely. Right. Like what is with government jobs and even just private sector jobs, businesses mandating for their employees to have to get a medical treatment in order to keep their job, coming in between that doctor-patient relationship, disregarding individual health needs.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to see, just as like an American, I would like to see something done about this to where they would prevent businesses from discriminating against someone and firing someone because of a health choice.
Well, what I'd like to see is I'd like to see the actual numbers of deaths that's caused by this vaccine and the actual illnesses that have been caused. Because right now we're not seeing all of the reporting on VARS or whatever it is. I estimate there's probably 10% of actual illnesses. I know Ron Johnson had a symposium there for 5 hours, and it could have lasted for 25 hours.
Right.
And I watched that whole 5-hour symposium, and it was unbelievable. When you just look at our military alone and the illnesses that have come about because of this vaccine, it's stunning, it's shocking. And we as a people and as elected officials need to stop this right now and take a good hard look at what we're doing. Prior to the polio vaccine, we had 10 years of clinical studies, and we just, arbitrarily went into this. And there's something to how this is. I mean, if you look at the inventor of this whole system, he's against mandates, and so that has to tell you something right there. Doctor, I forgot his last name now, but I listened to a couple of his...
You're talking about Dr. Malone? Or?
Dr. Malone, that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty scary what they've been doing with the vaccine mandates. This is unconstitutional. It's a violation of rights. You're not supposed to be being coerced or forced to take any type of medical treatment, especially one that's been experimental and has been authorized under an emergency use. So I guess it sounds like you're running on policies that would protect patients' rights and make it so that these businesses can't force them to, or what exactly?
Yeah, businesses have no, it's crazy. I guess, we follow the money, but where's the left on this where my body, my choice? I mean, This is absurd. We're in a country now when common sense is uncommon, and I'm running to put common sense back into our political system, and running on a platform of truth, and stop the lies and stop the censorship. And that's another big issue with me.
Right. Now, what's your stance on the Second Amendment?
Yeah, so my opponent, unfortunately, has watered down the Second Amendment twice with red flag laws in the Parkland school shooting bill. I will absolutely 100% never water down our Second Amendment. We have to know why, truly why, our Second Amendment's in place. And we're finding that, I think Canada now is beginning to find that out. When you can just arbitrarily shut down an entire country and basically persecute protesters for peacefully protesting.
It's crazy.
It is nuts.
Wild. It's like
nuts.
It's tyrannical. How can a president, or in this case, a prime minister, right? How can somebody like Trudeau just tell the people, sorry, you're not valid protesters in my book, and I'm just going to shut you down. I'm going to start arresting you. I'm going to go after anyone that tries to fund your protest movement. It's insane, but the scary thing is it's not far off from happening in our country.
No.
This is just the times we're in, so we need more protections. We definitely need our Second Amendment. So you're good with protecting that. Are there any other key policies that you're running on?
Well, there's so many. I mean, overdevelopment's a huge issue in my area, and unfortunately we have a developer's son that occupies the seat of District 7 right now, and he's up in Tallahassee writing bills basically to help his father and all the builders associated with his father continue to profit. It's it's crony capitalism at best, and at the same time, money it's unbelievable, because this guy's going to come at me probably with $1 million+ for a $29,000 a year seat. Okay, that's what the state senate in Florida pays, $29,000 a year, and he's probably going to spend somewhere around $1 million to retain that seat. Now, how much sense does that make?
Not much.
No.
Right?
So there's quid pro quo on the other end of it.
Right.
And where, his dad is funding all of the county commissioners in their campaign funds, and then obviously his own son, where, his own son's putting his own money in it, which is his family's money, and it's unlimited. I'm limited to $1,000 per donor per the state election laws, which is fine. If we all played the same game, I'd be great. But I'm going to get my message out to the people. I'm going to knock doors in grassroots, and we'll see how the people decide it, the patriots.
Right, definitely. So that's one of the things that's plaguing America is corruption. There's a lot of that. We've got the swamp. We've got this like pay-for-play stuff going on here. And so, if your opponent is doing this type of stuff as well, we got to get rid of them. We got to drain the swamp. We got to get real American patriots in office. And it appears that Jerry James, my book, you seem to be a patriot. You're pro Second Amendment. You're against the mandates. You want some accountability on the vaccine side effects that have been happening to people. All seems amazing to me. So where can people find out more about you, Jerry?
It's really simple. Vote the number 4, Jerry with a G, GERRY.com. And look, I'm a constitutional Christian conservative. I do prison ministry throughout the state of Florida. I go into some of the most hardcore prisons in Florida because, a lot of these guys, they never learned what I learned, you can work hard and prosper in this country. They've been fed lies. And we do unto the least of these, Matthew 25. And so I go in and I talk to these guys, and I basically bring them the gospel of Jesus Christ. And, some of them may get out in their life, some of them not. I go into death row as well. So, unfortunately, those guys have made some really bad decisions in their life, but there's eternity, and I share the gospel with them. But vote for Jerry. I'm having a golf tournament to fund my campaign, May 23rd, Palencia Golf Club, St. Augustine, Florida. So if anybody wants to participate in that, it's called We the People Golf Tournament, and that's also going to be linked into voteforjerry.com. So I would really appreciate your support.
Awesome, guys. So make sure you guys go and check that out. We got to support more patriots running for office. We got to drain the swamp. We got to replace all these rhinos. We can't let the rhinos be in control. We have to have real conservative patriots. Definitely. So thank you so much,
Thank you
Jerry.
so much.
Thank you for your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Did you want to take a picture?
Sure, yeah.
Be right back. I'm gonna put my heels on, so.
Get the high phone.
Yeah, I'm putting my heels on.
Want me to take that for you?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I'll be like a foot shorter than him.
There you go.
Awesome. Thank you so
stopping
much.
by.
Yay. All right, guys. So let's see. Who do we have next? We do have some more interviews lined up here, guys. So bear with us. We'll be on a short little intermission here. And then we'll be right back. We're just going to give you guys some footage of the people here at CPAC so you can kind of just see the atmosphere, what it's like here at CPAC 2022.
No, I'm gonna show her something real quick. She's a test pilot.
She reminds me of my.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Hot mics, just so you know.
Okay, thank you.
So you just go here. So you make your portals, right? Mm-hmm. And then go under collection. You add a collection. And then you need to assign the correct portal.
That's what I discovered last night when I was going through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's it. So you should be able to add
But
a...
everything was really slow, and I think I may just have to change the battery in my mouse because it wasn't responding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. It worked good enough when we first got the sample.
Yeah.
But we're not, we want to make one that's actually, here's what we've got. You'll like this.
What's that?
You're in the textbook.
All right, guys. So, CPAC 2022 been a pretty nice turnout so far. We're on day 2 of CPAC, and so far it's just been kind of casual, people walking around, talking to each other, networking. There's been some pretty amazing speeches so far, and I'm just going to continue to interview people while we're here. We're obviously here at CPAC 2022 in the QUX booth. and it's been great. People have been coming up, talking to us. If you guys are at CPAC 2022, come on by to the QUX booth, talk to us, get some free chocolate QUX coins, and get some literature, and check out some of the QUX boxes on display here. You guys could build your own portals if you wanted to.
share it to me and I'll put it on my platform. So I did a walkaway story, just me walking through my neighborhood through Brooklyn, coming home from work one day, just telling how I left the Democratic Party. And when I shared it with him, he shared it and it went viral.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what was your story? Like, what made you walk away from the Democratic Party?
Yeah, I mean, it's to make a long story short. I mean, my dad's an Army Major veteran, so I I lived in Germany for 5 years as a child. I saw the Berlin Wall fall when I was a kid. Always had love for America. Very patriotic American, and just growing up as a Democrat. My mom told me when I registered me at 18 to vote. She said, vote for the best candidate. Don't vote for a party or anything like that. My parents, I got older, I realized they were Democrats. As time went by, I never felt like I had to vote Democrat. So
Right.
yeah. So after voting Democrat for most of my life, after 8 years of Obama, I kind of saw a lot of corruption and a lot of things behind the scenes that are happening that really upset me about the party. So I decided to look at the Republican Party for the first time in 2012 with Herman Cain and Ron Paul. And after the media kind of messed up their chances, I decided to vote Republican again with Dr. Ben Carson. So that whole media kind of stepped in and messed up his chances too. So I was like 3 candidates I was going to vote for that the media messed up their chances.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so maybe it's like, okay, what do I vote for? So I saw how Trump handled the media. So when I saw Trump, I was like, okay, well, what is Trump running on? So when I studied Trump some more, I saw his policies. I liked what he was running on. And I said, if he's about his word, I'm going to support him. So that's what kind of made me officially walk away and vote for Trump for the first time.
Definitely. So what do you think is going to happen in the next election? I mean, one, do you think Trump's going to run in 2024? And do you think that he'll win? Or do you think that there's going to be some kind of election rigging going on? What's your take on that?
Good question. I think Trump's going to run again. I don't think he's going to let sleepy Joe Biden, steal the election like he did before and just sit back and let that happen. Trump's character is not, he's a fighter. So I think he's going to run just because this is who he is. But I think it's going to be more of an honest election this time around than it was the last time. I think last time they kind of had to set up a lot of things, including this pandemic, to kind of orchestrate a stolen election. They won't be able to have that same access this time around. And I also think there's going to be a lot more Trump supporters, a bunch of MAGA people involved in this midterm elections and the 2024 election as well. So I think people like being poll watchers, poll workers, people running this local state can have like 20 likes and 2,000 views. And I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, 2,000 views is like, if I get 2,000 views for video now, that means I got like 400 likes just to get to that amount of views. So I'm like, I almost got as many likes as I do views. And you got these people with like 200 subscribers and, they got 20 likes, but they have 3,000 views. And it's like, how is this algorithm accurate at all? How does somebody with less subscribers, less likes, but more views than somebody with quadruple the likes, less views? It just, if you do the math, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. And people have been losing a lot of followers on Twitter and different social medias because the followers get banned. Like they come through and ban people periodically. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that the bottom line is that they are trying to suppress content so that they can make it seem like to conservatives that I'm the only one, or there's not many of us, or we're the fringe minority. When in reality, there's a huge amount of them. They're the majority. I believe that Trump had a record turnout for voting. There's no way in hell that Joe Biden, who could literally not even pull in and fill up a small little tiny building in the middle of like Pittsburgh, there's no way that he could have had the record turnout for votes. Absolute horseshit. Trump is the one we've seen who's had record rally sizes, fills up giant baseball or whatever stadiums, giant theaters, okay? He fills up and packs the theaters and has tens of thousands of people showing up for him. So there's obviously something really fishy going on. It's very rigged. And the bottom line is they want us to feel like we're alone and that we're the minority, so that people just get scared and kind of back away, and people don't feel like they have allies in this. When in reality, there's a lot more of us than there are of them. They just it's a psychological game.
Oh yeah,
basically, right? It's like a psyop on the people. But it's also about censorship. It's about silencing speech, penalizing people for having certain opinions. They want to talk all the day about diversity, but they don't want to talk about diversity of thought and mind and political diversity. They want everyone to lock and step, go along with their opinions. So yeah, it's definitely scary, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. And like to say, the Democratic Party, I learned, being a Democrat for such a long period of time, like when I was 18, young and more naive, I had the Che Guevara shirts on and everything like that, and walking around like I knew everything about politics and all that stuff like that. But when I did the research, I realized, especially the history of both parties, Nestor Souza was a big help with kind of educating me on that. Mm-hmm. I was like, wow, I kind of learned a lot about the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party, they act like they're so diverse and inclusive, but they're only that way if you follow the narrative. And that's just, if you don't follow the narrative, you'll see a lot of anger and hatred from the Democratic Party.
Absolutely. And I've heard that so many times, really and truly. I have some family members that like went out on me for, how could you support Trump? It's like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Everything you're quoting, you're talking about is just a mainstream media talking point, and it's not true. It's propaganda, right? So I guess that's probably one of the main problems, right? Like we're seeing this issue with fake news in America, propaganda and fake news to vilify our fellow Americans and keep us all divided.
Yeah, no, definitely. The mainstream media has a lot to do. I mean, it's two things. It's a combination of corrupt politicians on both sides, not just Democrats, but Republicans as well, and the mainstream media. And that is beyond just. I mean, it's mostly MSNBC and CNNs of the world, but Fox News as well. Like they assisted in the stolen election as well, flipping Arizona early and everything like that. So there's just that is a big influence. And I remember when I was younger, I remember my friends' grandparents would always be like, when they were, we were kids, and they're like, oh, communism. And they would always hear about communism was from their generation. And they were like, oh, that television is going to ruin this country.
Right.
And you're like, okay, Grandpa, go to bed, kind of thing. But I look back at those individuals back then, like, were they so crazy back then, looking back at those elderly people back then that were talking about communism and how the TV is going to brainwash? Because it really showed me how much control the television has over society.
Absolutely.
I mean, I remember we all went through like a hurdle when it comes to the mainstream media. I remember when I was growing up watching, I used to watch MSNBC, CNN, Don Lemon, Joy Reid, Rachel Madcow, all of them. I watched them religiously when I was growing up. And I had a good friend of mine, Doug, who, shout out to my friend Doug, by the way, who became conservative before I did. And we were close friends. We always talk like deep conversations about politics and life and stuff like that. And I remember we got in this very heated argument right before, probably like 2 years before the election with 2016 elections about, politics and Democratic Party, Republican Party. And it got really heated. It was in front of his family around Thanksgiving time. And, it got to the point where, we were kind of yelling at each other. His brother-in-law was there, who's, very liberal guy, very SJW type. And he was like, oh, Black Lives Matter. And we were both like, F Black Lives Matter, And so even as a Democrat, I was like, nah, I ain't doing the radical leftist stuff. But I said, look, I saw it was getting heated, and, we knew as friends we're not going to get physical, nothing like that, but his family was kind of looking like we were crazy. So I said, look, man, let's agree to disagree. Let time determine who's right and who's wrong on this situation. And as time went by, I saw a lot of things we were arguing about that were topics that were the argument at the time. He was right on because I was going through the mainstream media, and he was, doing his own research. I called him up one day, probably like a year afterwards, and I was like, hey, man, the argument we got, he's like, oh, man, I'm past, that's old news. I'm like, no, I'm talking about it. It said that, time has gone by. You were right on a lot of those topics. I'm going to start thinking more conservative about my politics from this point on. Mm-hmm. And he was like, oh, okay. And I was like, yeah, all right. He's like, see you later. I was like, all right, cool. And and we just, and I, he's respected me a lot years later because I made that call to him. Mm-hmm. But I said, I'm not afraid to be wrong. If I'm proven to be wrong, if I feel adamant about a subject and time has gone by and I'm wrong about it, I'll say, hey, I'm wrong. I'm not a god. I'm a human being. I can be wrong. It's okay.
No one's right 100% of the time.
No,
it's just not the way it is.
No, and it's when people get to that point, though, is I see there's so much people struggle with that.
And it seems like, because there was a guy, who's carrying around a Nazi flag, but what he was doing was he was going, is this what you want? Is this what you want? This is coming to our country. This is like Nazi Germany. Papers, please. He was holding it up to make a political statement. Is this what you want? This is what's happened. And apparently the guy himself was from Europe. His family had come and fled from that, and so he was warning people.
Wow, and they took it way out of context.
So they take it out of context, they spin it out of control, they take the pictures, the photo ops, whatever, and then they paint this narrative that there's a bunch of horrible Nazi, white supremacist people there, and it's just not the truth. It's not reality.
It's what the media does, and I've learned even on a personal level about the media. I mean, I've been living in New York. There was an incident a few years ago that was an incident in Manhattan. There was when the Proud Boys got in a fight with altercation with Antifa in the city.
Right.
And I went to that event because I just started doing my videos at that time, walkway and everything like that. So I went to interview Gavin McInnes. So he was speaking at the Metropolitan Republican Club at the time. And shout out to Ian, the Metropolitan Republican Club too. And Gavin was speaking there, and I went to go hopefully get an interview with him because I was looking more for the controversy side of things. I wanted to get everybody's point of view on matters. I don't want to just get one group. So I was hoping to get an interview with Gavin, and after the event was over, there was 3 or 4 Antifa when I arrived at the event, and about 3 hours later when the event was over, the whole block was covered with Antifa. So and they were chanting at us, Nazi scum, and all this crazy stuff or whatever.
Right.
So
Their typical moronic chants.
Of course, the same routine, the same 3 or 4 chants they have. They can't at least be creative and keep some new chants or whatever.
Yeah.
But
same ones over and over.
Over and over again. So, the police are out there, and they did a great job of separating, both sides or whatever. And then when they separated us from both sides of the road, we walked about 3 or 4 blocks away, and about 5 or 6 members of Antifa broke off, and they waited at the end of the block where they knew eventually we were going to be walking towards. So I'm recording because when they're chanting Nazi scum, I start recording the Facebook Live to show people, hey, this is the Nazi scum they're talking about. A black guy walking around, the Hispanic guys with us, everything like that. So we're walking down the street, and one of the guys nudges into me, and I'm like, what's going on? And he's running towards an altercation because one of the Antifa members threw a water bottle at the Proud Boys. So they started to, respond back, and it got a little altercation.
Right.
I recorded the altercation and shared it on Facebook Live, so they banned my account for 30 days. BuzzFeed takes my video, they cut me out of it, and the media takes it and they say, a white supremacist group attacks innocent anti-fascists in Manhattan. And that was their narrative of their story. Mm-hmm. So Antifa, didn't press any charges or anything like that. So the fact that Antifa didn't press charges, the state still wanted to do something about it. So Cuomo stepped in and said, if you guys don't press charges, we will. So the state pressed charges, and 2 of these guys ended up getting 4 years apiece in jail for a small altercation that was nothing, pretty much. I've seen worse fights in middle school, but the media takes it, they flip it totally upside down. January 6th was another situation. I saw them do the same thing. I was there on January 6th, and I saw, because I knew, I had a feeling something was going to happen that day. And the media, I don't never trust the media, so I don't ever want the media to be the ones to tell the story about what happens on the situation.
Right.
So, as we all know what happened on that day. So
try to counter the censorship and demonetization that we've been experiencing across the board, because not only are they just trying to silence us, they're actually going after us financially.
Yes.
They're cutting us off financially so that we can no longer afford to stay in business and do what we're doing. I know that there were a group of leftist activists that targeted Steve Bannon, his war room, and they targeted Breitbart as well.
Wow.
They got 90% of their funding pulled from Breitbart.
Wow.
Right, yeah, because what they were doing was they were going around and they were lobbying and they were basically harassing the ad agencies that do the ads for website providing to then get them kicked off from those ads, like Google AdSense. I'm sure you've heard about how people get kicked off of Google AdSense, and a lot of news sites, they rely heavily on advertising. So what QUX does, which is really revolutionary, is it changes the way the relationship between advertisers and creators is, and content creators. So there's more of a direct. So not only can someone like us create a creator profile, advertisers could create advertiser profiles, and the advertisers could actually send you a campaign request and say, hey, your audience likes the same type of thing that I sell because your audience clicked a box, right? Because the audience gets to pick their own ad experience. So let's just say that 80% of your audience clicked that they are interested in guns and sporting goods, right? Okay. And they want to see ads related to that, right? It's then what you see is they would see that, maybe the NRA would be matched up with you because they have a similar product, you have an audience that likes that product. They might think, hey, I'm going to send you an offer for running ads on your portal, and that's a way for you to monetize. So it just kind of revolutionizes the way things are done. It's more consent-oriented, and I highly suggest you check it out and get yourself a portal, get on there.
Well, can I get access to a portal? Like, is that something you just go access, or do you got to be like, how's that work? Because I'm really interested. This is
Yeah, definitely. So you can actually create and build your own portals. You could build multiple portals on
Really?
there if you
Wow.
wanted to.
Wow,
Yeah,
this is
Pretty cool.
revolutionary.
Yeah, it's like social media television.
No.
So definitely.
No, and I tell people all the time, like, because people come to me because I have a group that I founded, a grassroots conservative group called the Conservative Republican Alliance. So members of the group ask me, "Hey, Chris, are we heading to a civil war?" And I'm like, "We're already in the civil war." Because I tell people all the time, this isn't, and I'm not saying be disrespectful, I'm just being honest. Like 1776, when they fought wars back then, we're not going to fight, with muskets, going up a